Merci, bienvenue. I am Anaïs, I am the French brand ambassador for the Macallan, and I will introduce you some wonderful people for this masterclass. At first, you will have Nicola Riske. She's brand education manager for Europe. She's doing a great job, and she talked about the Macallan as it was her own life. Second part, we will have Florent Martin. Florent Martin will be soon officially one of the best ouvriers de France, so something incredible, and is working in a great place named the Peninsula Paris, and you have to visit him at the Oiseau Blanc. Florent. And the last one, but maybe you know him already. Josep Roca is a partner of the Macallan since minimum 10 years, and is creative, is incredible, and is ready to bring you in a beautiful journey. Josep. To start our gastronomic journey into French, into Spain, and into Scotland, we are going to watch together a short movie. Sorry, we have a problem? We are going to watch together a short movie. We will explain you why our whiskey brand is so famous and why we could say that our whiskey is incomparable.
The path of least resistance. It lures us with the promise of an easy ride. But where does it take us? For almost a century, we had matured our whiskey in Spanish sherry-seasoned oak casks. But when the supply of sherry casks dried up, we reached a turning point. While others took the shortcut, we headed for Spain to carve out our own path. Each sherry season cask would take 5 years to make, and would cost up to 5 times as much. But the harder way felt like the right way. Appetite for our whiskey soon began to grow. And once again, we reached a turning point. Should we build another distillery to meet the rising demand? Or should we set our sights higher? Should we follow the path of least resistance? Or should we dare to pursue something greater? The Macallan. Make the call.
The first topic together will be the common value of the Macallan with the wine world. And to begin, Nicola, you are an expert of our beautiful brand, so maybe could you talk about the pillars of the Macallan?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anaïs. Good morning, everyone. So, as you just witnessed through this beautiful film, for me, what I love is it immediately transports me over to Scotland and talks a little bit about the Macallan, our distillery, and why we've made the decisions that we have over the years as well. And what always guides us are our 6 pillars. The first one being our beautiful Macallan estate, as well as Easter Elke's house. Now, we are situated, we're a Speyside single malt, located up in northeastern Scotland, nestled in the beautiful rolling Highland Hills along the mighty River Spey. It's one of the fastest flowing rivers in all of Scotland, quite famous across Scotland for holding this title, if you will. Now, right along that beautiful river, you'll find our estate. There, we're growing our own barley. We have our wonderful Highland Coos, and then you'll find that beautiful manor, that small house that was built in 1700 and has been our spiritual home since the Macallan was established in 1824. Right next to that house, of course, you find our beautiful brand new distillery. We built and opened our brand new distillery in spring of 2018 to continue to combine both tradition and innovation in the making of our beautiful spirit. Now, in whiskey, just like in wine, we always like to talk a little bit about process, and those are parts of our pillars as well. When it comes to the Macallan, one of the first things that we reflect on, we look at malting, milling, mashing, fermenting, distilling, and maturation. And for us, we talk first about our curiously small stills, which you may have noted in that film over there. Now, the shape and size of copper pot stills, of course, is really going to influence the character of the new make spirit. It's really going to define every single malt distillery. And at the Macallan, ours are curiously small. They're only 3,900 liters. Because of this unique shape and size, it gives us a very rich, viscous, new make spirit. Very, very unique to the Macallan, very distinct. We distill twice at the Macallan, then between the heads and the tails and the heart of the distillate, we look to only make the finest cut. We call it the finest cut only because it's just that. It's very fine, it's very specific. Again, honing in on a beautiful balance between cereal and fruit. Again, distinguishing our new make spirit. That new make spirit then goes into our exceptional oak casks, which I know we're going to talk a lot about today, that are handcrafted to our specifications for the Macallan down in Jerez de la Frontera. So our casks, we talk about at the Macallan being both masters of oak and spirit. And what's unique is our cask management. We are unbelievably meticulous about this. Some might say a little bit obsessive, but we're proud of that. It's part of our DNA, it's part of our history, dating back to documentation from the 1890s when Sir Roderick Kemp was our distillery manager. And so we continue with that tradition today of having every single cask handcrafted for us in Jerez. We truly follow it, the provenance of the cask, all the way from acorn, all the way through to bottling. Really, simply because of the beautiful flavors, aromas, and the natural colors that it develops for our spirit. Natural color is, again, another one of our pillars, of course. We're not using any caramel coloring, any additives, any E150A, if you want to talk about it. But really, again, creating that beautiful character that you find in the bottle. At the end of the day, what ties it all together is our incredible whiskey mastery team and our team creating this spirit. And all of those pillars, all of those elements combined really are what create that liquid, that beautiful liquid that's assembled by our team, led by Ms. Christine Campbell, our master whiskey maker.
Thank you, Nicola, for the cask, for Jerez. I know someone who perfectly knows this part, and this will be Josep. Please talk about the Jerez Bodega and the work we do with this wonderful cask.
Ok, je parle en français, je pense que c'est mieux de... Je parle après pour faire la traduction, parce que simultanément c'est compliqué. Ouais. Mais c'est vrai que tous les bois qu'il y a dans cette matière pour faire le whisky, c'est quelque chose de très spécial.
It's true that the wood used for this whiskey is a very special material.
Il parle de forêt, il parle de sustainabilité, il parle de respect, il parle de ce côté de l'agroforesterie, en tout cas de beaucoup des éléments qu'on pense aujourd'hui dans le monde de vin et que Macallan il fait avec beaucoup de caresses depuis longtemps.
It's true that these forests talk about many things. They address sustainability, respect, forestry, and the world of tomorrow, something Macallan addresses with a lot of respect.
Mais aussi absolument tous ces contrôles qu'ils ont de maîtrise au niveau de travail avec les bois, qui permet de faire quelque chose vraiment d'artisan, mais aussi quelque chose qui va faire petits détails qu'après on va rencontrer dans l'esprit de notre Macallan à dernier moment.
And there's a lot of control and craftsmanship mastery involved, including in small details that find their way into the final spirit, the Macallan.
On travaille avec différentes tonnelleries, mais on fait tous les processus avec une stricte référence d'exigence pour chaque fournisseur. Et on a cette ambiance différente pour les fûts pour sécher, premièrement dans les côtés nord de l'Espagne surtout. Et après, on laisse finir cette maturité de la fût de chêne dans le sud de l'Espagne. À tout près, c'est minimum 4 ans d'un vieillissement de cette fût pour faire la brota.
And we work with different cask makers, but we have very strict requirements. We start drying the casks in the north of Spain, and then it's in the south of Spain that it's matured. This takes about 4 years.
Toutes les combustions, les côtés brûlés, c'est toujours avec la part naturelle. Il n'y a pas de pétrole, choses comme ça qui peut donner quelques mauvais arômes à la fin.
And all the combustion parts are done naturally. There's no petrol, for instance, involved, which could induce a bad fragrance.
Et non, c'est la fût de 500 litres, mais il y a, avec un peu plus d'altitude, un peu plus de longitude, il y a différentes variétés qui permettent aussi de jouer avec ces côtés au Fevrier qu'il y a derrière de cette première méthode de construction d'un bois, d'un fût de chêne, de chercher après les côtés alchimistes qu'on verra d'après avec les master distillers.
And these casks are about 500 liters, but there are different varieties and different construction methods. It has something of an alchemist's trade. We'll talk about it.
Et parler de Macallan, c'est aussi, comme disait Nicola, parler de Jerez. Ça veut dire que quelque chose de vérité, quelque chose d'authenticité, quelque chose de singularité, personnalité, qui fait une connexion très forte avec une terre, c'est une terre blanche, mais qu'il donne, c'est pour les terroirs qu'on appelle albariza, mais qu'il donne beaucoup de profondeur à la fin.
And it's true that the Jerez, it talks about personality and similarities, and we're using white earth, which gives a certain touch at the end.
Même aussi, on va parler après, mais il y a cette combinaison de l'écorce et l'âme, avec l'âme de l'esprit qui arrive de l'Écosse pour faire ce nuage de bonheur dans le monde. Mais aussi, il y a l'écorce qui a cette matière, qui a quelque chose, qu'il y a quelques génomes, quelques génotypes, quelques informations anciennes de culture de Jerez, mais aussi le vin de Jerez.
And it's a combination of body and soul. The body is the first, the soul, it's the spirit of Scotland, which brings all this happiness to the world. And for the body, it's in the genome of the Jerez spirits, including Jerez wine.
L'influence d'Oloroso, c'est bien sûr la plus importante, mais il y a aussi petites essais dans différentes variétés de vin de Jerez qu'on peut jouer aussi dans ces côtés au Fevrier qu'il y a derrière de la maîtrise de l'élaboration chez Macallan.
And it's true, there are different wines in Jerez, so using these different varieties, that's how we end up with the mastery of the end product.
Mais avec derrière de ce côté un peu plus poétique, il y a aussi des connexions moléculaires, des connexions physiques, des changements de tonicité, de contact, de lignine, qui va donner des choses, qui va jouer dans différents composants.
And apart from these poetic notes, there are also the actual physical molecular notes, the tannins, the contacts, which do intervene.
Et ces composants qu'on peut dire de solérone, acétaldéhyde, ester, sotolone, matière aromatique, eugénol, etc., qu'il va jouer avec cette interaction et qu'on peut dire à la fin que les résultats à la fin sera jusqu'à Genesis, et Genesis c'est toujours avec l'âme de Jerez et le corps de Jerez.
And there are all the molecules involved, aldehydes, esters, eugenol, all these aromatic molecules, cycle molecules, and the end result is genesis, which is linked to Jerez.
Thank you, Josep. Often, when we talk about whiskey, there are many clichés linked to it, and I'm sure you all know. And Nicola, I know you have heard this cliché often, as I have. So we could take the main one. Which one could you quote?
Oh, there are so many cliches. Where do I begin? Part of my job, I think, in life is honestly to debunk the myths of whiskey. And I'm sure in wine there are a lot of myths that you're constantly debunking as well. And one that we've talked about is, years ago when I first started in the whiskey industry, there was this idea of whiskey was a man's drink, and it was something that was sipped by the fireplace, and he'd be wearing slippers, and that was it. There were these rules for how to drink whiskey, that you could only drink it neat, that it's best if it's cask strength, that older is better, and darker is older, and all of these things that are honestly enormous myths. And at the end of the day, what we've realized now is that there are no rules. Whiskey is for everyone. It's the beauty of this liquid, how versatile it is, how accessible it is, how playful I think it can even be, and that adding water to whiskey is like oxygen to wine. Opens it up, changes the molecular structure. Also, adding ice to your whiskey is okay. It's a choice, that's fine. But also that you can be playful in the world of cocktails, for example, which we'll dive into later. How expressive you can be with these incredible aromatics and flavors and compounds in this liquid. And then food pairings. Whiskey is not just a digestif. It can be paired with food, it can be an aperitivo, it can be an anytime, So we have to continue to break down those, to debunk those myths and just recognize that it's such an incredible spirit that is, that we give our guests a great opportunity to explore, and it's about finding the right moment for the right occasion for the right individual, right? So.
She could continue to talk about cliché in the whiskey world, but we don't have too much time. With Xavier Tuizard, it's a great French sommelier who were confronted to this cliché. And I know, Florent, you're very close to Xavier.
Yes.
And
yes. Yes, it has been so difficult for us because in France we are not really especially used to serve some whiskies during the dinner, and when you have somebody in front of you, a guest who comes at the restaurant, he doesn't expect at all to have whiskey during the dinner. Donc, first of all, we had to adapt our language, our vocabulary in front of them. You know, sometimes sommelier, we can be a little bit elitist, and when we speak to people, they don't understand. So, first of all, we've been quite careful about speaking and explain that a really good spirit, you don't feel the alcohol. Every good spirit, you don't feel the alcohol. So we adapt our language to speak about fragrance, perfume, maybe a kind of luxury code, which is really close to the emotion and the way to travel when you taste something, when you taste a liquid. And of course, there is some comparison with the wines that you can do. As you said, Josep, we can speak about tannic structure because of the woodiness, the balance of the whiskey can be really similar to wine. And we'll speak about pairing as well, which is something really important to us in our culture. And when you bring the whiskey for a really good reason, with a beautiful food in front of it, it's an emotion that you can share with a guest.
You're incredible. It's maybe a reason why I really love the Oiseau Blanc.
I had a good formation. And the way to taste the whiskey before give me emotion with all of you.
I know someone has a lot of emotion who is the Macallan, and I heard, Josep, that your wife ring you a bottle of the Macallan when you were dating. And we are really proud of this, and please, Mrs. Roca, thank you so much. I would like you to explain your attachment to the Macallan and what make you choose your spirit at first.
Premièrement, je dois dire que j'ai encore la même fidélité à ma femme et à Macallan.
I have first of all to say that I have the same loyalty to Macallan as to my wife.
C'est un couple de cœur.
It's a question of hard decisions.
Bon, Macallan, c'est très important dans ma vie, c'est vrai. Ça, on parle de quand j'avais 16 ans. Alors, ça veut dire que c'est une histoire d'amour, de chance aussi, et de me retrouver, même aussi avec cette première cadeau, c'est vrai, de ma fiancée, ma femme maintenant. Et c'est bien ça, c'est bien. Je ne savais pas que tu connaissais ça, mais bon, c'est bien.
I know a lot of things about
And
you.
it's important to say that I was 16 years old. It's a love story, actually. It was a question of luck. Find myself, find my fiancée and my wife today.
Bon, ce que j'aime de Macallan, c'est toujours cette idée de connexion dans les valeurs. Les valeurs, mettre en valeur tout ce qu'il y a derrière de cette pilar, non? Qu'il parle d'un héritage, qu'il parle d'une maison, qu'il parle d'une façon de faire, qu'il parle d'un respect, rester honnête, responsabilité avec les clients, mais aussi avec l'héritage. Et oui, c'est vrai qu'on a aussi la chance, quand on goûte Macallan, on goûte histoire. Il y a d'histoire derrière.
And it's important to say that I feel connected with the values, those core values that you mentioned, the pillars. It's a question of heritage, of home, a way of being linked, respect with the clients, responsibility. You are connected, and this is a very important part of the heritage.
C'est vrai qu'avant, j'ai parlé de molécules, j'ai dit de choses de la chimie. Je parle jamais dans mon restaurant avec les concepts techniques. Et je demande à mon équipe, nous sommes 6 sommeliers dans notre salle de restaurant pour 500 couverts, de ne pas utiliser jamais anthocyanes, lignine, même les tannins, des choses comme ça. Rien de tout.
Brettanomyces.
And I have to say that actually I mentioned technical and chemical works earlier today, but in my restaurant I never use these works like anthocyanin, lignin, tannin, and I say to my sommelier, we are 6 hours sommelier in our restaurant of 25 seats, we just talk ourselves with emotions, not technical.
Alors c'est ça qu'on pense, quand on pense à Macallan, il y a toujours ces profondeurs de savoir, ces côtés historiques, ces côtés mémoire, ces côtés relativiser la vitesse de notre vie de maintenant et réfléchir dans l'idée de 10 ans, 12 ans, 15 ans, 30 ans, les temps qu'ils passent, qu'on arrête et qu'on peut profiter du temps qu'il a passé et que nous accompagne dans ce moment.
And when I speak about the profound taste, the history, the speed, I always try to think 10, 15, 30 years away. Take the time of the present, enjoy your life, and stay at the present.
Alors, qu'est-ce que j'aime de Macallan? C'est l'amplitude, c'est l'intensité, c'est l'expansion en bouche, c'est la longueur, c'est côté profondeur, mais aussi, toujours, j'imagine qu'il y a quelque chose qui passe pour ma peau, pour mon sens, que c'est cette connexion d'un eau de vie, que c'est un eau de la vie, qu'il voyage d'un endroit et qu'il retient quelque chose de mémoire, de matière, d'une connexion pour tous les amateurs de vin que correspond Macallan avec ses relations avec Jerez.
And I have to say, the Macallan actually for me means intensity, means feel the things profoundly, have the senses, have a concentration. It's a water of life, and this water of life has traveled and has a memory. So for all the lovers of wine, there's a history, and that's Macallan for me.
Thank you, Josep. Florent, your turn. We have just understood the cliché linked to whiskey. How do you think we can overcome this cliché?
As Josep said, speaking about story is and tradition is the beginning. To find some common value to defend and share is maybe first of all a subject. It's like not especially just testing, but sharing philosophy. And the way to serve it is, I think, so important too. If you imagine, for example, in wine, the way we serve the wine now is a result a lot of decades and centuries. It has been so different. If you look at the Roman people, the Greek, they were already serving wine. And today is a result to commercialize and serving wine. And when I'm at the restaurant, I'm so impressed to see how the guest can be impressed about the ceremonial to serve wine, the way to decant, put the liquid in a carafe, in a decanter, and create emotion through the movement and the gests that we can use. And I think, first of all, when we serve whiskey, we're not obliged to serve a big glass. It can be a really small quantity, something to test. Can be as well a blend or a mix with a liquid, such as a cocktail. Me, I've done it with tea and serve it in a carafe. And if you bring it to the table, you serve it in a glass, which is a wine glass, really thin, really fine, really elegant. The way to approach and speak about will be totally different, and the feeling of the guest will be totally different too. So it's a question of attitude and the way I think to speak about and to serve it, which will be interesting. Break the rule, not especially do it in a martini glass, a wine glass, and maybe in a decanter.
This is really nice to too much creativity, and it's a perfect introduction because we all know that the Macallan is anything but a boring whiskey. And for this, it will be your turn, Nicola. Please talk about creativity.
About creativity, I think with the Macallan, what's beautiful are some of the expressions that we've created as of late. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the no-age statements. We've been talking a little bit earlier this week about no-age statement whiskeys when there isn't a number on the bottle to define the whiskey. And the beauty of this, we most recently created our Harmony collection, which is not defined by a number, but it's defined by flavor and character. And through the Harmony collection, it's been a beautiful collaboration of and exploration of flavors. Most recently, a collaboration between two worlds, between coffee and whiskey. However, our first expression with Harmony was actually with your brother, with Jordi, where we developed a whiskey that paired perfectly with chocolate. And one of our whiskey makers went down to Girona to go and follow along and learn and understand the entire process of chocolate making from start to finish, and took all of those beautiful learnings and went back inspired to Scotland and searched for the casks that gave the most beautiful chocolate notes. And that was the creation of the Macallan Harmony Rich Cacao. And again, searching for those beautiful chocolatey notes to create that perfect pairing, but also to enjoy that chocolatey goodness in the liquid itself, which I just thought was magical. And so it's about that creative thinking outside of the box, that it's not, that flavor is not defined by a number, but by character, by time, by history, by emotion, and by all of these elements that that our noses and our hearts also follow.
And about cocktail, maybe?
Oh, well, in cocktails, of course, as well. I mean, around the world nowadays, you see that whether it be leaning into those beautiful classic cocktails, I always say the old-fashioned never goes out of fashion. There's a reason for it, that it's been a classic since 1862. But then you also take a look at what is being done nowadays in bars and restaurants around the world in terms of incredible experiences as well. We were talking about Paradiso the other evening as well, a bar in Barcelona, and the experiences that they create, the magic, really, the storytelling as well, through not only classic cocktails, but through innovation. And you continue to see that through, again, the collaboration of chef and of bartender and of everyone throughout the team, which I'll let you guys talk more about.
Yesterday, we were talking with Josep, and Josep, and I have an idea. Maybe we could develop something like that. Maybe we could do something like that. And he looked at me, but that's already 20 years ago, I already did it in my restaurant. Like, okay, so we could consider that El Celler de Can Roca is a beautiful place, was very, very creative. And if we add the craftsmanship, and if we add the word incomparable, I think it will be the perfect description of the Roca brothers. And this is a great thing, because this is the value of the Macallan too. We are so happy to have this beautiful partner since 10 years ago. And please explain us, how do you manage to put forward the Macallan in your restaurant?
Il y a beaucoup de choses à dire, je ne sais pas si on a le temps, mais bon, c'est vrai qu'il y a une situation extraordinaire chez nous. On est 3 frères, très monde parallèle, qu'on fait de croissants avec façon transversale et fraternelle en même moment.
So there's a lot to say in so little time. But we have an extraordinary situation. We happen to be 3 brothers, and we work in parallel worlds, and there's a lot of union.
Alors, ce côté de générosité aussi, c'est important dans le monde de la gastronomie, que la cuisine écoute les gens de la salle, qu'ils profitent les talents qu'ils ont à son côté, dans l'autre côté de la porte de la cuisine. Et j'ai la chance de cette générosité de mes frères et moi.
And there's that generosity point which is important in gastronomy. You have to read the room, and things happen on both sides of the kitchen door. And that's what we have with my brothers.
Bon, c'est vrai qu'on peut jouer, on peut s'amuser, on peut travailler à différents chemins de créativité. Et on a fait pas mal de choses avec Macallan. On aime ce processus de liberté qu'on a dans notre cuisine.
And it's true that we can play, we can work, we can explore different paths of creativity. And with Macallan, that's what we've been doing in our cuisine.
Même aussi dans les services, on peut faire, c'est vrai, tu as raison, qu'on peut changer à niveau de présentation de différents verres, mais aussi différentes températures. On peut jouer aussi avec la température d'un même whisky et on va trouver des choses totalement différentes, seulement pour l'aspect technique qui nous a fait changer notre conception, notre sensorialité et sensibilité, même dans le cerveau, même en bouche, les tacts, tout ça.
And it's true that you had a good point about the presentation. It's the same can be done with the service. If you change the presentation, you can change the perception, or even if you just change the temperature of one same whiskey, you will change the feelings and the senses and the perceptions.
Même aussi jouer le même whisky avec différentes matières, avec différentes textures, qu'il va faire jouer avec la salive d'une façon différente, avec les pH et la densité de whisky, qu'il va faire jouer à niveau perception sensorielle aussi quelque chose d'intéressant.
And you can also play with the different textures for one same whiskey, depending on the pH and the density, what different textures you have it with, or how it mixes with saliva. That will entail different results.
Mais on a joué vraiment à faire une décomposition aromatique moléculaire de whisky, de différents whiskies qu'on a travaillé à la maison, et chercher les composants aromatiques et faire de ça un ingrédient pour faire une harmonie, si on peut dire, proche à cette synergie moléculaire des arômes qu'on met comme ingrédient dans un plat.
And it's true that with the different aromatic components, we can mix and match them to using the different components of different whiskies in order to end up with the harmony, the molecular synergy that you would have in a dish.
On peut manger un whisky aussi. Tu peux faire différentes textures que tu peux faire de manger à la cuillère un whisky. J'ai dit qu'on aime jouer. On peut faire, vous connaissez bien la technique qu'il a fait les 94, surtout à partir de 94 de Ferran Adrià, de changement de texture. On peut faire une certification de Macallan, de whisky, et après on peut sécher et on peut faire comme un sultan, un raisin séché de Oloroso ou de whisky.
And we can also eat whiskey. There are different textures, you know. You can end up eating whiskey with a spoon. As I said, we like to play. And like in 1994 with Adria, we changed the textures. There's a way to dry up whiskey and get the flavor to and the fragrance to appear on sultanas, small raisins.
Et on a fait aussi un sorbet aux minutes avec nitrogène à minute, moins de minute. Il y a un sorbet de double casque, parfait, facile à faire. On peut faire à la maison si vous avez nitrogène liquide.
And if you have liquid nitrogen, you can also make at home some double cask sherbet. That's possible and that's easy to make.
Mais bon, on peut faire aussi, on fait la cuisson à vapeur avec des whisky. On fait un travail qu'on dit parfum cuisson.
And we can also steam cook with whiskey, with a job we call perfume cuisson.
On met dans une pierre au coupe de feu, pierre galette roulée tout petite. On monte en température, on les met dans un bol, on l'accompagne à la salle, on met une petite pièce comme une langoustine avec une surface qui permet de maintenir les langoustines et laisser passer les whisky. On peut faire un parfum cuisson au moment à la salle et on fait comme on arrête tous les arômes, on ferme avec une autre pièce. On peut faire une cuisson en minute dans la salle avec le vapeur de whisky.
And for instance, we can also cook on fires, on fire stones, by increasing the temperature in small bowls, by increasing the temperature with small stones. We can slowly cook a langoustine, but it's cooked in the room or in the dining room, and we can lock the aromas of the whiskey in the langoustine.
Il y a quelques feuilles qu'on peut ajouter avec avec une injection de whisky dedans et élever la plante, souffler la feuille et manger une feuille avec le whisky dedans.
And we can inject whiskey in some leaves, in certain leaves, with a whiskey injection, and puff it up, and extrude or puff it up, and you can eat a leaf with whiskey in it.
Tu peux réduire l'alcool d'un whisky avec de l'eau. Tu fais moitié-moitié, alors tu peux à 20 degrés, mais on peut faire aussi désalcooliser les whisky à le degré que tu préfères, en basse température pression avec les rotaval qu'on a commencé à travailler en 2006.
And you can also diminish the alcohol content in whiskey by diluting it with water, 50-50, or even diminishing the volume and the percentage to the level you want.
Avec ce système rotaval, on peut faire aussi une combinaison d'infusion de jus de fruits que tu trouves dans un whisky et faire cette évaporation dans cette matrace, c'est faire bouillir à 50 degrés, moins de 50 degrés avec pression, et retrouver une eau qui a tous les arômes de cette whisky que tu peux mettre directement dans une tarte au whisky, service au client, avec un petit distillateur aussi en face du client.
And you can, using that system I've just mentioned, the rotaval system, you can also have fruit juices infused with whiskey. You use an evaporation process. It's boiling at 50 degrees Celsius, and you end up with the fruit-flavored and whiskey-flavored water, which you can use to make a tart, fruit tart.
Thank you, Josep, but please don't
Oui,
give
j'arrête,
all
hein.
your tips.
No, we listen to him at the end. So many nice recipes.
I would like you to tell more about your role as a client advisor, because I know that you love to explain that you are a wine waiter.
Oui, c'est vrai que la plus importante chose qu'on doit faire dans la salle, c'est maintenant, aujourd'hui, j'ai dit, retenir les talents qu'il y a à ton côté. Rester conscient qu'il y a les services, qu'il y a les produits pour vendre, mais surtout, il y a les personnes qui t'accompagnent. Et je pense qu'avant de tout, on doit mettre en valeur toutes les personnes qui sont avec toi dans une organisation pour forcer la caresse, pour prendre soin de la clientèle. Et on doit rester proche à cet collaborateur interne pour faire prendre soin des clients externes.
And it's true that something very important.
So to discover the beautiful service of Josep, you have to wait 11 months. Nicola, I would like you to follow what Josep began, and how could we explore the similitude between the world of wine and the Macallan?
Oh, goodness. Well, I know Josep already succinctly really talked about oak and whatnot. And when it comes to the world of both wine and whiskey, I love talking about the meticulousness of oak and the importance of maturation, flavor, exploration, and understanding how it develops the character of the liquid itself. And how it brings so much depth, how it brings so much to explore. We haven't touched on this yet, really, but the use of both American oak sherry seasoned casks as well as European oak sherry seasoned casks, and how that plays into the depth of flavor and color that it brings, which obviously in wine you talk about oak quite a lot as well, and the understanding of the regions of where the oak is sourced from and every single detail that goes into the making of a cask. Along with that, you can also talk about, gastronomy, right? And cocktails and whatnot. We mentioned cocktails, but also looking at food pairings and focusing in on the whiskey as well, and how it plays together with the food. So again, exploring that through cocktails, through low ABV cocktails as well. We talked a little bit about that and about how it can be an aperitivo, not just a digestivo. So there's a lot to explore, and we know that with wines as well, we like to pair them in different areas, but there's a lot more versatility than necessarily meets the eye at the start, right? And I think that that's something that we continue to push through our industry and continue to explore.
Yes, it's crazy. You're always full of ideas. And if we want to elevate the customer experience, we need to create a synergy between the Macallan and the world of gastronomy. And to answer to this question, Florent, what are your tips for elevating the customer experience?
First of all, when I told you that whiskey can be understood such as something alcoholic, we need to identify that we serve wine or even whiskey always through the perspective of a glass, because that's the way how we commercialize it. But when we serve a glass, we serve an experience and a move of several sips. In one glass, there is 5, 6, 7, even 8 sips, most full. And those sips, if you articulate them, such as a melody, you can integrate in between some links, such as food or tea. And our intention at the Peninsula is to articulate those links, those sips and mouthful, to create musicality, you know, and integrate the whiskey such as a part of the melody. For example, you can put, as you said, a spherification of whiskey at the end of the composition. You can start with meat, served with a wine, and at the end, to remind, for example, the leather and the smokiness, put a touch of the Macallan. The other way can be as well to stretch the emotion, the feeling. You know, when we test as sommelier, we always begin, feel the evolution, and describe the end in the mouth, in the palate. That's why we've created a plate which moves, and we put the glass in the middle of the plate. And in function of the different sips that you could have in the glass, we do a melody of tapas, of finger food. They are different. The first one will begin to, for example, adapt the taste in function of the first sip. The second finger food will be adapted in function of the second sip. And we do something like this, like a progressive tasting around the glass. And it's nice because you can develop a synergy in between the glass and the food, and ever to tell a story. You can tell a story through of this progressive feeling and tasting around the glass.
And you, Josep, your tips?
Non, il y a des choses. On a fait aussi de collection de verres pour la dégustation de Macallan. Même aussi, on a fait une glace avec l'espace pour une boule de glace dedans, pour mettre exactement cette pièce en valeur de faire seulement une petite dégustation, mais toujours réfléchissant ces whisky.
So we had the collection of glasses for the palate, and we had tasting with the different Macallan taste, including ice cream, and as well having the ice cream inside the whiskey.
Même aussi une glace qu'on a avec l'idée de l'épilard de Macallan, avec l'édifice, avec la Roca. Nous sommes Roca, c'est mon nom, c'est la roche. Une roche avec un espace qu'on met aussi les vitres, la verre, avec la même forme de la glace ronde.
And we also use the pillar of the idea that my name is Roca. Roca means stone, and stone is something that you can add like ice cube inside the glass.
Mais bon, on peut dire beaucoup de choses qu'on a fait avec. Je ne sais pas si j'ai dit quelque chose de synergie ou j'arrête. C'est pas.
And there are many examples of synergies, I could say.
Customer experience, please.
Non, alors aussi pour nous, à niveau de méthode de travail de Macallan aussi, on peut faire des combinaisons avec cette idée de cocktail, mais aussi on fait avec les produits de cuisine, si on peut dire. Alors on peut servir quelquefois un whisky avec un bouillon de pigeon. On peut faire avec un bouillon de jambon.
And we do a lot of walking methods. We would combine cocktails and make combinations, but it could be also combinations with the kitchen products. That could be a ham broth, or it could be a pigeon broth.
Bien sûr, de la truffe, de topinambour, de betterave, de combination de jus, d'infusion avec les whisky, ça joue très très bien, et on fait souvent cette idée d'accompagnement, d'harmonie, d'approche en plat avec les jus les plats avec les whisky pour améliorer la quantité caustique de l'alcool et assembler les arômes avec une belle harmonie.
And we can combine it with truffles or with red beets or with tombinancourt, with sunchoke and many other products to improve the quality of the taste.
Et jouer aussi avec la réglisse, avec les shiitake, avec les sésames noirs. Il y a tellement de choses qu'on est dans un côté de palette qu'il va jouer dans l'amplification des arômes de whisky qu'on a vraiment un ventail extraordinaire pour faire les harmonies.
And you can make many combinations, like including licorice or black sesame or many other products that will intensify the aroma, like you have also in other cultures.
Thank you, Josep. I know you can read a lot of books about what you create, but I think the book will be for the next station. Nicola, tell us about the Macallan in the country of gastronomy, in France.
Here in France, well, of course, I mean, famous for gastronomy, and it's amazing to see, I think, with the work that you've done here as well, and continue to work with through the gastronomic scene here, the collaboration and how it continues to grow. How some concepts with whiskey, in working them through a menu, might, again, we talked about the traditional view in the beginning, but how open and how, I think, excited and open-minded everyone is here to continue to explore how you can play with the spirit, again, as we've talked about, through menu from start to finish, and what the playful opportunities are to bring forward an experience. And in France here, I mean, the sky is the limit. It's amazing to see how it continues to grow.
And the sky is the limit. I know you know it, Florent, because I remember that there's some planes and you're not too far from the sky in your restaurant. So how do you create a synergy with the Macallan in your restaurants?
You're right, because we are at the 6th floor. We are open 7 days. Please welcome. We are upstairs, so we are every day in front of the sky, which is a beautiful feeling to have the light every day. When you walk just like this, it's so beautiful and so pleasant. And we are really careful about, listen to the tradition and the past and bring it in a new vision, or try to bring it in a new vision. And when I learned about whiskey, when I was a little bit younger, people always saying that we should serve a glass of water with whiskey. And in that way, we try to serve tea or coffee before to taste whiskey. It's a way, first of all, to speak to our guests and say, okay, you will have a whiskey, which is something a little bit more alcoholic, but before you will prepare your palate with some tea or a coffee to adapt and feel better. For example, before to serve a whiskey, we can prepare a cold brew of coffee, we can organize a pour tea, and it's like you put a decoration before the tasting. And it gives a kind of introduction, which is softer, but still flavorful, to introduce and to prepare the palate to taste the whiskey.
And you, Josep, could you conclude this first part and tell us about the collaboration you have with your brothers, with the Macallan, and how you create experiences?
On a la chance, on peut aller à la cuisine de Macallan. On a la chance aussi de connaître différents master distilleurs et profiter de cette sagesse et faire des whisky, finaliser les whisky et faire de différents produits qui ont sorti au marché.
We are very lucky because as brothers we can prepare lunch, or we could go to the cuisine, or create a whiskey with one of the masters of Macallan, so we can benefit of their wisdom and finalize products before they go to the market.
La première chose qu'on a fait, c'est ils ont dit de faire un whisky nommé Roca. Alors c'est l'édition 2, et on a choisi 4 tonnelleries différentes de l'Andalousie. J'ai choisi des whisky qui ont vieilli différentes tonneries, différents fûts de différentes tonneries, pour chercher la personnalité de chaque frère et même la personnalité de Bob Delgarno en ce moment, c'était le master distiller, et faire avec cet assemblage de 4 personnalités de 4 tonneries différentes, mettre en valeur 7 maîtrises avec les éditions numéro 2.
And we were lucky because one of the first things we did, we created a whiskey in the name of the Roca family, and it was a limited edition. So we have chosen different casks from Frantonnerie, and it was a very personalized flower fragrance, and it was really up to our personality.
Vous pouvez imaginer voyager dans une cité et retenir l'esprit d'une cité, chercher les arômes, l'idée que tu as envie d'encapsuler dans une bouteille quand tu voyages en cité comme Londres, New York ou Jerez, et faire un whisky à partir de la composition, de chercher plus de 400 références de whisky, choisissez qu'est-ce qui va bien avec ta intuition de ce souvenir de cette cité et mettre mise en bouteille.
And it's a real trip to be able to go to a city, travel, and remember all these fragrances. Imagine London, New York, Jerez, and make a composition of how you remember these 400 different references and combine them into an intuition that is online with your memory.
C'est ça, c'est édition Distill London, Distill New York, qui sont arrivés déjà au marché, ils ont disparu à la minute.
And these compositions called Distill London, Distill New York have been sold immediately as soon as they arrive on the market.
On a eu la chance aussi de travailler avec les rares casques, avec les harmonies, avec Jordi, avec, je ne sais pas si vous savez, nous avons une manufacture de cacao. On contrôle tous les processus de cacao, de la fève de cacao qu'on achète en origine dans la communauté d'origine de différents endroits d'Amérique.
And we are very lucky because we are part of the cocoa bean network, and over there we can combine the harmony of the cask of manufacturing of cacao of different places of Latin America origin.
Et pour comprendre bien la gestion, le management de temps, on a fait aussi cette pétition de chercher un bota de palo cortado de 86. C'est la naissance de notre propre restaurant. Et on a envoyé une bota de Palo Cortado 86 et une bota avec Oloroso de 7 ans d'âge. Et ils sont à Careguilari, ils sont à la distillerie. Et on comprend bien qu'il fait seulement 8 ans. Je ne suis pas encore pour goûter ce whisky.
And it's also a question of time management, because imagine in Palo Cortado, we are there since 8 years, and that's the birth of our company. And in Borda de Coloroso, we are 7 years. And sometimes I go to a city and I don't even have the time to enjoy what the distillery created 8 years ago.
Alors, menu de dégustation avec 15 whiskies différents jusqu'à 1946, fait à partir d'aromatiques, densité, et faire les plats pour chaque whisky qu'on a choisi à la distillerie pour faire les ultimate dinner.
And it's always an experience to be able to have a degustation of 15 different whiskies going back to 1846 and combine them on the tasting with different aromatics and different meals that we prepare.
Et
and one last thing, maybe.
Je sais pas, direct.
A last thing, please.
Non, il y a time captured experience, ça veut dire les valeurs du temps dans les whisky. Et on a joué en différentes choses. Pour moi, c'était intéressant de faire une montre de sable. Vous voyez qu'on peut comprendre que les temps passent, et faire une soupe avec whisky que si tu manges pas rapide, va disparaître.
And it was a magical experience to capture time as an experience and as a concept. So we created a sand clock where you could put your soup inside with whiskey, and if you drink it in the right time, you can drink it. If you don't drink it slowly enough, it will disappear.
Même aussi mettre en dégustation d'un vieux whisky dans la main, avec entre le pulgar et l'indice, cette part d'ici, pour mettre un goût et faire vraiment un bisou. Et que le whisky va entrer dans ton univers humain d'une façon différente.
And it's another thing to have an hourglass, and it's another thing to let a drop of whiskey on the top of your hand slow down all the way to your finger, and then kiss your hand and feel all the sensations of the whiskey drops on your body.
Thank you, Josep. Dear spectators, you have in front of you a single glass, which may surprise you. With Josep and Florent, we wanted to get away from the classic tasting codes, and we wanted to take you on a journey with only one single glass. It will be double cask 12 years. And Florent, we are ready to fly. Please take us in a beautiful travel.
Just before, I would like to say that after you, it will be difficult to create something new. And I'm so happy to share this time with you, because you brought something which is really precious. It's creativity with team all together. So, the way how we can encapsulate a geography in a glass is just beautiful. And with whiskey, thanks to the river, the hill, all the landscape around, we can feel it. You can have a look at this beautiful amber color and silver tints, really beautiful viscosity, which is, as you said, natural. The nose is really elegant, in between a kind of cereal, really brown, really close to chestnut, a kind of fermentation feeling really close to miso, soya. And in between that a kind of light really close to citrus, something fresh, something bright. In whiskey, we could always speak about rudiness, about powerful. And you know, when you look at all the Scottish, you can feel that powerful character. me, I especially a big fan about accent. You know, I'm from Corsica, and when you listen to the accent, the way how people can speak, the voice, you can really understand the soul and the spirit of somebody. And when you taste a whiskey, you almost listen to the voice of a Scottish person, you know, something which is rude at the beginning, something powerful, but behind, especially with the Macallan, it's elegant. The feeling is smooth. The texture is really delicate.
And now, Josep, please take us to the space side and with emotion, with the mouth of this whiskey.
Oui, c'est vrai que quand on imagine, après cette belle description, on peut dire qu'il y a, quand tu goûtes les whisky, je pense qu'on doit faire avec petits bisous, mais avec action de salive pour chercher une palette confortable dans ton palais. Parce que normalement, on peut dire que l'alcool peut rester caustique au premier moment.
So it's true that when you taste whiskey, you have to give it a kiss in some way, and there's some action of your own saliva in order to strive to get the perfect, comfortable palate for your taste.
Ça va permettre d'amplifier et retenir quelque chose qu'il va jouer avec toi et qu'il va arriver avec ses côtés plaisir à fin de bouche, qu'il va permettre cette ouverture symphonique d'arômes, que c'est le résultat de maîtrise et d'une qualité d'alcool sublime.
And it's true that you can amplify this by retaining a bit of alcohol in your mouth and play with it, for in-mouth enjoyment in order to achieve a symphony of aromas. And that results for the great quality of the initial ingredients and the expertise.
Bon, ces whisky, c'est l'esprit de l'Écosse, c'est l'esprit d'un endroit, de Speyside, c'est l'importance de l'eau de Spey. C'est voyager dans un brise de culture, dans un point de culture.
And it's true that this whiskey has the spirit of Scotland. It brings you the water of the River Spey, the Speyside water. It's a trip, a cultural trip.
Et c'est un voyage de culture, c'est un voyage d'harmonie, c'est un voyage d'atmosphère, c'est un voyage du nord à sud de l'Europe, mais toujours avec cette connexion outre-mer, cette connexion transmer avec cette poids américain qu'il arrive pour donner ce côté charme, ce côté enthousiaste, ce côté joyeux, ce côté noix coco, on peut dire, vanillina, ce côté, ce côté enthousiaste.
And it's true that this cultural trip encompasses harmonies between for instance, the trip from the north to the south of Europe, and also the connection across the sea, across the ocean, because the wood comes
Josep,
from the USA.
I have a problem. We asked me to do it very, very quickly. So, Florent, could you very, very quick, in one sentence, please give me one main course to pair with this whiskey?
To be really objective, the best pairing that I can do is growth. When you use that kind of poultry, which is quite powerful but in the same time delicate, my chef does it with a coffee sauce flavored with the liver. It's just beautiful.
And you, Josep, in one sentence?
Non, je finis avec un chocolat, avec des maïs, avec cette côté noix coco qu'il va jouer très bien, avec les chocolats de Chiapas, c'est un chocolat blanc, pas chocolat blanc lacté ou de beurre de cacao, c'est un chocolat spécifique de variété blanc. Il est très délicat, je pense que c'est accessible à cette palette aromatique qui va jouer très bien. Chocolat, maïs et noix de coco.
I'll use chocolate and corn and coconut. It's a special white chocolate from Chiapas. It's a non-dairy actual cocoa bean chocolate. Very delicate, the right palate.
Thank you. And to conclude this wonderful moment, we'll watch 30 seconds of a short video. Thank you and cheers.